The next 6 weeks will tell us exactly how the 2025 housing market will play out. Currently, the market is a little bit slower than it was this time last year, but the graphs of what's going on in the housing market seem to tell a similar story, right? Things are trending in the same direction. That being said, inventory levels across the country currently sit at the levels we saw in May of 2024. And May is the peak buying season in the housing market. So the fact that we're already at those inventory levels tells you that there's much more inventory on the market than there was this time last year. Now, at the same time, more listings are hitting the market and fewer homes are going under contract, which means there are less buyers out there in the market putting properties under contract. So, what these metrics could mean is that we could see inventory start to build back towards pre-pandemic levels on a national basis. Now, this would be good for the housing market as a whole, but I do think this will be very segregated. Different housing markets across the country are still very undersupplied with inventory, while some, like markets down in Florida, Texas, and Colorado, are well oversupplied with inventory. So, what I expect we'll see as we move throughout 2025 is if we see these trends continue and we see the national housing market turn into more of a seller's market, that will be driven by significant inventory in different pockets across the country. Now, certain markets like Detroit and here where I am in Vermont that are very undersupplied on inventory will likely still remain a seller's market. Maybe things will shift into more of a balanced market, but they won't be nearly as cool as some of the other markets that are oversupplied with inventory. And we're going to find all this out in the next 6 weeks. So we're going to go over the metrics that you need to be watching over the next 6 weeks to understand exactly where the housing market is headed. Before we do, my name is Liam O'Reilly. I'm a realtor with Jerry Riley Real Estate here in Vermont. If you have any real estate needs, whether it's in Vermont or anywhere else across the country, reach out to me directly and I would be happy to help you. So let's jump into the first article here. Okay, let's jump into the first article here out of Redfin. It's titled Housing Supply is Piling Up as Home Sellers Enter the Market, but Buyers Stay on the Sidelines. And I know my head cuts off the title. I apologize for that. But basically, what they're saying is more sellers are listing their homes, fewer buyers are putting those homes under contract, which is leading to increased inventory. That's part of the reason why inventory is so high. And if we continue to see this trend, if we continue to see more sellers list their home and fewer sellers put the homes that are listed under contract, then we're going to see inventory build back to pre-pandemic levels. When we take a look at where we are now, we see here median sales price. I mean, nothing's really changed in that story. It's still up 4.3% year over year. When we take a look here, pending sales down 6% year over year. So fewer buyers are putting homes under contract. New listings of homes, they're up 7%, 7.4%, at least according to this graph here. So we're almost at 2022 levels of inventory that's hitting the market. Meanwhile, the homes going under contract are significantly below last year's levels of homes going under contract, which is obviously well below 2022 levels. So this is resulting in more inventory on the market. This chart right here, active listings of homes for sale is up 11% year over year. Now, we're not seeing a huge spike, but when we take a look at this graph, we'll see here this 900,000 level, which is where homes are now, 902,000 homes on the market. According to Redfin, we're at that level at about April to May of last year. We see here in 2022, we didn't hit that until July. Of course, 2022 is a much different market, but still, May is the busy time of the year. That's when you would expect most listings to be on the market because most sellers are listing their homes around that time. If we continue to see this discrepancy between new listings of homes and pending sales, then we could see active homes for sale continue to climb, and which would bring inventory back to pre-pandemic levels. If we take a look over here at the Federal Reserve of St. Louis, the Fed, we'll see that inventory levels before the pandemic, if we look at September of 2019, they were at 1.2 million. If we take a look at February of 2019, we were at 1.1 million active listings for sale. So as of right now, we're only about 200,000 listings below the pre-pandemic levels. And the thing is, I don't know if they're using different data than Redfin, but they're saying as of January, there were only 829,000 active listings for sale. So there's about a 70,000 listing discrepancy between Redfin and the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis and the data that they're reporting. Now, when we take a look at the specific markets over here at Fast Company, this is what I was talking about, where it's it's not uniform across the country. We see here Denver has 20% more inventory than they did in 2019, while Detroit has 40% less inventory than they had in 2019. So the changes in these markets, we've talked about it many times on this channel. It's really a localized change. The market in Vermont or Detroit is going to be very different than the market in Florida or Denver, where inventory is abundant. Um, and ultimately, that's what drives home prices. Active inventory exceeding the amount of buyers that are out there in the market, that will cause home prices to go down. Whereas if there's a shortage of inventory in a current market, that will cause home prices to go up. Now, if we take a look at some of the graphs that are deviating from the trends that we saw last year, we'll see here 5 months supply of inventory is available on the market as of February 9th. When we take a look at what happened last year, there was around 4.3 months supply of inventory on the market at that time. And the trend is flat to upwards, right? We saw it dip down almost like it was in 2024, but now it's dipping back up here in 2025 and continuing to rise. If we see this month supply of inventory continue to grow, anything over 4 months supply of inventory is considered a buyer's market. Now, of course, we're at 5 months supply of inventory now. We're not quite in a buyer's market yet. We're smack dab in the middle of a balanced market across the country, at least as far as the data shows. But when we take a look again at the inventory map, we'll see that it's really not the entire market behaving the same way. Certain markets are still very competitive, while others are much slower and is much more of a seller's market. I know here in Vermont, there was an agent who submitted an offer on a property this past weekend. There were 10 offers on that home. I'm sure it's going to sell for over 100 grand over what they had it listed for. Now, at the same time, Vermont's not as hot as it was during the pandemic, and not every home is getting 10 offers. But because inventory is so limited, there are still homes that, if they're priced appropriately, are selling for over list price. Now, let's take a look at some of the other data here. 31% of sales are under contract within 2 weeks. Again, the lowest level that we've seen in recent history. Homes sold in the median of 57 days. So all of these signs are trending towards more of a buyer's market compared to a seller's market. 21% of homes sold for above final list price, again, below last year, but still above 2023 levels, which I think is very interesting. Average home sold for 98% of list price, again, below last year, still above 2023 levels. But again, the most important metrics to watch for are these new listings of homes, the pending sales, the relation between those two, and then how that affects active inventory. If we see active inventory continue to build across the country, then we will enter into more of a buyer's market on a national basis. To wrap up this video, markets behave very differently depending on where you are geographically. You can't just take a look at the national data and translate that to your specific market. You have to look at exactly what's going on within your market and make your decisions based on that. However, if we see these trends continue over the next 6 weeks, if we see fewer pending sales, more new listings hitting the market, and active inventory continue to grow, I do think that will show that the housing market is going to be slower this year than what we saw last year, more of a buyer's market than what we saw last year. There might be more transactions than last year if sellers start to negotiate on their price, but it's going to be a less favorable market for sellers if these trends continue. Now, that being said, we are entering the spring market. Anything could happen. More buyers could come out of the woodwork. I know there's a lot going on across the country with cold temperatures, heavy snowstorms, fires, and natural disasters that are hurting many parts of the country. And of course, that obviously affects people's lives, but it also affects the housing market. And so as spring rolls into effect and the weather events start to normalize, we'll see where the housing market is heading. And I think we'll know that within the next 6 weeks or so. So take a look at the trends, watch these videos, educate yourself over the next 6 weeks, and you'll have a good idea of where the market's heading by the end of 2025. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.